We have somebody I'm a huge fan of. Great director, and his latest movie is just perfect. We have Todd Haynes on.
Hey,
Hello.
Tom.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate you taking some time, and I know your time is limited. So, Todd, you just say to me, "I'm going."
Okay.
When you're done, we're done.
All right. I appreciate it. One
Yeah.
weird thing is I've had just crazy Wi-Fi stuff going on today. I can't. Every time I've tried to make a phone call, it's shut down. So fingers crossed. I have three
Well,
bars right now in this
okay.
room.
We'll do
So
we'll
hopefully
do
we'll
what
just
we
jump
can.
in. We'll do
Now,
what we can.
Todd, I
Sweet.
appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show. I just want to say I'm a huge fan of your work. This Velvet Underground movie, I've seen it twice in the theater and
Oh wow.
watched it at home also. I am completely devastated by how perfect it is.
Tom, that's super. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It means a
I
lot. Thank
mean,
you so much.
when you go and take on a subject like this must be the scariest thing imaginable because this band is like sacred for so
Yeah.
many people.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I kind of had to shut my mind to that and just, realize that I am a very lucky guy. I am being asked, via Laurie Anderson to do a documentary film about the Velvets, and that John Cale agrees to, participate in, and Mo Tucker, who we finally connect with, agrees to participate in, and and I think what I realized right away is that there would be inherent challenges, unbelievable challenges in how to visualize this this music, right, and this story, because the band does not reside in all of the places that you'd expect to find any, most rock documentary subjects, promotional footage and live concert stuff, and all that stuff. But at the same time, I knew that this was what made this particular project so absolutely unique and special, because I would need to rely on the cinema of Andy Warhol and of the avant-garde filmmaking that was surrounding this band's life and coming into being, and that this was this incredibly rich and fertile time and place in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was all of this visual material that we could use to try in some fashion to sort of stir up what it might have been like to have been there.
Yeah, and I mean, you structured it in such a the bar is so high on this in terms of how you're going to tell the story, and going through the art version and New York before everything kind of popped, no pun
Yeah,
intended. You
yeah, right.
you structure it so that it's like these two icebergs of one is rock and roll and one is the avant-garde, and they're both just heading toward each other in like this collision that everybody knows is coming, and then when they hit, it's just like the movie just it's just so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was our own curiosity about where the sound came from, where the different musical influences that were leading John Cale and Lou Reed, in their own sort of paths that were not expecting to find each other. It was it was kind of like, as Tony Conrad says, like an unbelievable accident, a miracle. That there was this collision, and yet you also see all of these instincts being played out on both sides of that divide, those two icebergs, as you say, that are interested in rejecting what's been done before in one way or the other. And even if Lou Reed heard Dylan and was like, okay, I can bring poetic content and sensibility to songwriting and rock and roll, but my content is going to take me somewhere else that he hasn't explored or even thought about. And he would eventually like tune all of his, the strings of the guitar to the same note when he played the ostrich as the primitives for Pigwig Records, which is in a way what John Cale was doing with Lamont Young, playing a single note in a duration and hearing all of the resonances within that and what that does within the musical expression. So they were both, they were definitely doing it in different ways and with different cues and different influences and inspirations, but there was so much interesting rejection of the status quo, rejection of what had been done before. But, what's crazy to me is like how much they were also rejecting all the stuff that was going on all around them in the 1960s, which was such an innovative time. But these guys kind of had to create this attitude of saying no to it and holding off together and feeling and almost erecting that kind of disdain that Cale describes as a creative, practice that would get them somewhere together. And I know that shooting heroin together further isolated them from the world and further made them feel like it was them versus against the rest of the world. All of those things were feeding and fueling the artwork that they were trying to find together, So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just the most amazing time. It's just like, and to be making this film as we're coming out of the Trump era and entering into the COVID era, it just deepened the value of what this time represents, and particularly today, and what we could learn from it, and hopefully like just feel a little bit of its energy and its irreverence and creative spirit and all that.
Absolutely. What are things that going through all of this archival stuff, either visual or audio, like what are some revelations and surprises that just kind of knocked you back?
I think it was like a lot of things that we were following. I was following my instincts. My editors, Afonso Gonçalves, who I've worked with on many films now, and Adam Kernitz, who I'd never worked with before, but Fonzie and Adam had worked together on the Stooges, Jim Jarmusch's Stooges doc, and Fonzie had a great experience working with Adam, and I met him and talked.
Oh no. Todd.
It's still showing his number on line 5.
Hang up so he can call back if he's going to call back.
Okay.
Why? Why do you forsake me, technology? Oh. My dream. My dream. My dream.
Hello?
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 Hey,
This is
oh, it's Tom.
Hey, Tom.
How are you? Oh, so you were just saying your editors, they worked on the Stooges doc.
On the Stooges doc, and we were sort of following our instincts, and I was like, okay, we have Lamont Young describing this drone experience, and John Cale as well, and how then Jonas Mekas takes Andy Warhol to see a Lamont Young concert, and then all of a sudden the next thing people know is Andy Warhol is working in these long form films, silent films, Kiss, Sleep, Kiss, and then Empire, so we're like, of course, we're going to play the drones and we're going to show these images from these films. But it wasn't until you literally see them, you hear the music and you see the images, and you have this sense where you're making the discovery yourself as to how one medium of art is informing the other. And that became sort of like the example that I wanted the film to make as much as possible for a viewer, which was like, yes, there's an oral history, yes, there's all these great interviews we have, and they're telling you the story, but I wanted you to feel like you were letting the images and the music lead the experience, and the words were almost behind your own discovery process. So that was one example. Another was just like watching a screen test in its duration for the first time. I'd seen.
Oh my God!
Right? We've all seen
the way that you have Lou staring, like trying to like in like a staring contest with the camera.
Yeah,
I was like rattled when I saw that for the entirety of it, because it really is like he's challenging the camera.
He is. It's like a 2.5 minute, piece of living portraiture where somebody is breathing and blinking and existing on film in front of you.
Yeah, and then you have Cale look so beautiful, but he is just looking at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah,
like,
and then the slightest, gesture, the slightest tick of the head, the viewer, you read a response as if he's responding to something in the frame next to him that's telling the story of his childhood, with all these, other clips from avant-garde film, and you also feel like they're kind of witnessing the documentary itself being told, and it pulls you both out of it and deeper into it at the same time. But yeah, things like that. I think letting these films play out
it must have been fun to play, kind of like you got to do your own version of Chelsea Girls in a way.
Yeah, right. That's where the inspiration came from. And every time Chelsea Girls, for people who don't know, it's Warhol's most famous, critically well received of his avant-garde films. Before Paul Morrissey was pretty much directing the narrative versions of them with Joe D'Alessandro later in the end of the 60s and 70s. But it's a dual projector movie where 3.5 hour series of two films are being shown next to each other. And even though projectionists are given precise instructions about when to start the second projector, like 4.5 minutes after the first projector starts, start the second one, every time that those two projectors play it, it's going to be off a little bit. It's never going to be the same. So the way one frame speaks to the other frame is always going to be slightly different, and the viewer is going to be there to bring it to life, because you'll be seeing these connections. It'll only be happening for your version of seeing that film.
It's just really. I actually had heard from my friend Ronnie said that that when Warhol actually was not as hung up on the timing of Chelsea Girls as maybe through time, and the estate maybe was a little more precise with it.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to be specific about it. Rick Linklater actually circulated a video version of it to friends for a Christmas present, so he sent me one. And Rick has actually been sending me copies of Warhol films that he would do, in the old days on VHS tape, from prints that he would show at the Austin Film Society. And but he sent this DVD of Chelsea Girls, and it included what typewritten page that was circulated to projectionists, which sounded very, very specific. But I think Andy was always kind of looser and open to the accidental, than people may know.
And that's kind of the beauty that gets lost, I think, now with Warhol is first of all, the radical aspect of Warhol's work. And just there's an exciting energy and chaos to stuff that I think gets maybe those edges get sanded off a little bit.
Exactly, like a controlled chaos, but with a tremendous sense of kind of conjuring, the affect from the people around him, and creating a space where people felt safe to try all kinds of things, and that was communicated by everybody I talked to who was there. Was even if Amy Taubman would bring up really interesting things about the hierarchy of beauty that a woman might feel in the factory, and I'm sure young men felt objectified by that eye because everybody was sort of vying for the camera and the lens and wanting to be selected for the next, film or screen test or whatever it might be. But as John Cale, he talks about it like a playland of acceptance and a taskmaster who really wanted people to be producing work all the time. And that's what they did. And so they were using amphetamine, but they were using it to fuel this constant productivity and then go out to parties at night. And, like, come on, man, that's really having it all.
That kind of sounds like the best version of anything ever.
Of drugs. Exactly. Totally.
You always pick, not always, often throughout your filmography, you have these kind of unknowable characters at the center of the movie, whether it's Safe or, obviously I'm Not There or Velvet Goldmine. And this is almost like the mother of unknowable characters for me, is just Lou Reed it's like, everything and nothing.
Exactly. And I do think him not being here, look, if he was alive, I would have wanted to interview him. No question, he would have been the first person I would have gone to for this. And it would have been a different film. There's no question it would have been a different film than what it is. But he isn't. And I do think there's something about that structuring absence and a kind of yearning for him that the film maintains simply by that fact. And that I think serves the sort of power and what's enigmatic and unmasterable about this music and this band. And it should never be something that you could just reduce down to a couple of lines. It should remain mysterious and infinite and unknown. And I think what's amazing about the music is it still sounds like an experiment that just happened yesterday. Like it has that vitality, which is rare, obviously, and for music that finally has become as well known ultimately as it has.
You as somebody who, this is my favorite band, you did right by them to a degree that I will forever be appreciative of. So I really do thank you for that. And I know you're busy, and I just also want to thank you for your time. And I also want to say, look, I missed the boat on I'm Not There when it came out, and I want to officially bow before you and say I was wrong, you were right. I get it now. Sometimes I'm not so smart, and this is one of the cases where I'm not so smart.
All of these subjects are we all have really personal relationships too. And that's great. That's what's amazing about them. And I tried to take a non-reductive view of Dylan and multiply and have the film be an argument among different sides of him and selves that he produced and that I felt he really was arguing and disavowing who he was yesterday, but not for some big grand, project or concept as much as, although I loved what that said about identity, it's usually what interests me is people who resist against a sort of stable, reducible notion of self or whatever. But I think it was also just simply to clear the air for the basic need, which is for him to always keep making stuff and writing songs. And the pressure to be Bob Dylan in the 1960s was so enormous and so, confining and limiting and terrifying, I would think, that you have to almost aggressively push away the expectations each time. And I think that it was partly just simply a survival mechanism for him.
Yeah.
To keep
I had not pushed away enough of my baggage when I saw it the first time. So it took me about 13 years to push it away. I did push it away, and now I'm on board.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time. And thanks again for this movie.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, take care. I'll talk soon.
Yeah. Talk to you.
Okay. Bye. Well, that was exciting. That happened, right? Did that happen?
It happened.
Look at that. I think I held up my end of the deal, right?
And Todd Haynes 1, Tommy Stinson 0.
Yeah. No, Todd Haynes 1 million. Tommy Stinson 0. No, that was great. I appreciate everybody that helped make that happen. Lance Bangs, Kelly Reichert. I appreciate everybody that helped out. So thank you. No, that was a real treat.